John, thank you so much for joining us at the virtual education event with Mayo Clinic. To start, why don't you briefly tell us about your kidney cancer diagnosis and experience?
Okay, well, thanks for having me on today. And I guess it started back in August of 2018. I woke up one morning, actually went to the restroom, noticed a little bit of the water kind of looked rusty color. And I called my wife in and had her to come take a look. And she said, I think that might be blood. You might ought to go to the doctor. So immediately I went to the doctor. He confirmed that it was blood, but you really couldn't tell. And he said, I think we ought to just watch it. He said it might have been a capillary breaking, but he said, if you notice any more blood, he said, go immediately to the emergency room. So the next morning I woke up and sure enough, as I went to the restroom, there was blood. So I immediately went to the emergency room there in Kansas City. And they put me in they done a CT scan on me at that point in time. And then that's when the ER doc come in and told me, he said, you have a large tumor on your right kidney. Well, that kind of blew me away. And he said, chances are, he said, we haven't done a biopsy or anything. He said, chances are it is cancerous and we'll need to investigate further. And they said, we've set you up with a meeting for the next day with a urologist there in Kansas City. So that's where I first learned. At that point in time, we really didn't know that it was kidney cancer,
Mm.
but we knew that it was bad enough that we had to continue to investigate and go through the motions. The next day,
Mhm.
uh, at the doctor's office, he said the same thing. I mean, we're pretty much guaranteed that it's probably cancer,
Mhm.
but we just really don't know at this stage. So that was on a Friday. And then that weekend, that was a very long weekend for me because not knowing exactly what to do. I'd done a lot of research as to where I could get the best medical advice. And I elected, it was a clear cut choice to go to Mayo Clinic. I
Mhm.
was about a 6 hour drive away from Kansas City, which isn't too bad.
Yeah.
And so I made the phone call on Monday, set an appointment up. I think we drove up then on Wednesday, a couple of days later, and all the records was sent over the air. They had them all, and they said, yes, the kidney's going to have to come out. So that's where, and we still didn't know that it was cancerous, but we knew that it was bad enough that it had to come out.
Well, what were some of your first thoughts when you were told that you had kidney cancer? You were in this period where you didn't know if it was cancerous, but you knew the kidney had to come out. I know that you said that that was a blow for you, which would be for anyone, right? No one wants to hear that they have a tumor in them that needs to be removed and that their whole organ has to go with it. But when you actually got the diagnosis of kidney cancer, what were just some things going through your mind?
Well, first of all, I said it couldn't be happening to me. There's been no sign of cancer in our entire family. Uh, my dad came from a rather large family. He was one of 10. None of them had cancer at that point in time. My mom's side, the same thing. So I just almost couldn't believe that it was happening to me. So that was the first thought. And, there's not just one thought that runs through your mind. Your mind is running 100 miles an hour when this is all taking place. And so the second thought was, wow, if I've got kidney cancer, how serious is this? And do I need to prepare my wife for life without me? So that's the second thing that starts running through your mind. So, there's just a lot of things that appears in your mind that you normally wouldn't think about.
That is true. And you don't want to think about it, right? You never really want to actually ever think about that throughout your journey. And with all of those thoughts going through your head, I know that you did the information, you knew Mayo Clinic was the right place to go, but where else did you look for support and information after your diagnosis?
Well, the first person you always turn to is your wife and then your daughter. And so, they provided a tremendous amount of support to me. And then for technical support, I went to my brother, who happened to be a ER doc himself.
Okay.
So he was able to fill in the blanks that we didn't know from a technical aspect or from a medical aspect. Uh, what was interesting at that first doctor's meeting that the hospital set me up with on Friday, my wife was there, my daughter was there, my brother was there, and I was there actually. So the doctor walked in to kind of like a team, like, wow, what do we have here? But fortunately, my brother being on staff at the same hospital that the other doctor, they knew each other. So, that kind of opened the doors as well. So we had a very good meeting that day. And he told me that he could perform the surgery or I could elect to go anyplace else. And I told him I wanted to think about it over the weekend. And again, done a lot of research in that weekend period. And, Mayo Clinic always pops up in the kidney cancer role as number one in the nation. I mean, they're the best. And that's what I wanted was the best. So that's what that's why we decided to head that way or to make the phone call on Monday morning. And fortunately, the people on the phone at Mayo immediately picked up that it was serious
Mm.
and they immediately was able to get me an appointment. Like I think Thursday was the first, and we drove up on Wednesday, so there was only like a 2 day lag before I had to leave to head to Rochester.
Now, what were there any online resources that you turned to other than, the like your medical resources, right? And your and your family and the staff at Mayo Clinic. Were there any online resources that you turned to during this time?
Well, you always start looking for anything that you can find. You could always find, what is it, the US News and World Report about hospital rankings and clinic rankings and what their specialties are and all that. So, that's the type of information that I was able to come up with on all.
Okay, great. Well, you were talking about the support from your family. Did you notice any change or did your personal relationships change after your diagnosis?
Well, you have to remember not a lot of people knew about what was going on. And we didn't know for certain that it was cancer. Everybody
Yeah.
in immediate family assumed it, but things happened so fast. Mayo was able to get me in so fast. So a lot of my friends didn't really know until after I had surgery and it was confirmed that it was clear cell carcinoma. So, and at that point in time, it was determined that it was stage 4. So it was a pretty bad cancer. And that's when, people started, and still after the surgery, they didn't, we wasn't around very many people for a while until, one of the few things after surgery, we got home, my wife started cooking foods that was more kidney favorable.
Mm,
And that was a big change in my life, trust me, because my diet is not prone to that type of food.
yeah.
So that was a struggle, and I probably didn't appreciate it or appreciated her as much as I should have at that time period. But then other things like as I healed, and I have a farm, and we use it for hunting purposes, and I had a lot of friends that would hunt with us,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of preparation that you do before the hunting season. One thing I noticed was if I'd pick something up, everybody'd say, "Here, let me do that for you. Let me do this." So that's the type of stuff. Nobody really made a effort that you could see change, but there's always there to support and do things that let me do this. So that's how I really noticed it the most. My
Yeah.
wife changed, and then friends changed that way.
I was gonna say, so what changes did you notice in about yourself after your diagnosis, other than having to change your diet? Because I completely understand you can't go one way and then go another when it comes to food sometimes. But what about yourself? What changes have you noticed in you?
You know, I really can't say that there's been any change. I
Okay.
don't know. I haven't ever noticed that I was sick. That's what's so interesting about kidney cancer. It was all internal. I didn't feel bad. I didn't
Mm.
know anything was going on in my body. And then the biggest fear then is after surgery, is it going to come back? Uh, the quarterly tests that we do every quarter, your emotions get high. What's this going to reveal this time? And it never goes away. It's always the same thing. Psychologically, you might forget about it in between times, but when you start that testing again, it always hits you hard again, thinking, what if, what if?
And to that point, so I just to clarify, so you're on quarterly scan still. That's your surveillance schedule?
Yes. Surgery was August of 2018.
Okay.
And ever since 2018, we're now 2026.
Hmm.
I have been scanned. I have blood work, a CT scan, and a doctor's visit every 3 months, and we have not missed it since. I either drive up from Kansas City, or if I happen to be in Naples, Florida, I fly to Rochester. But
And
we've
how
never missed a time.
and how is your health today?
I don't know there's anything wrong with it. I need to exercise more, but I'm 75 years old. And so I have a friend that we made a pact just this morning that Thursday we're going to start walking. So I'm
Nice.
sure my doctor will be pleased to hear that.
Awesome. Well, what advice then, thinking about your journey over the last 8 years or up going on to 8 years, what advice do you have for others diagnosed with kidney cancer, maybe particularly stage 4?
The only advice I know to tell people, listen to your doctor. Make sure you have the best medical care that you could get, and which is evident to me, which in my case, it's Mayo Clinic. And my doctor is world renowned. He's tops of the field, Dr. Bradley Leibovich. And continue making sure that you continue to scan because kidney cancer is one of those cancers. I don't know that you ever cure yourself from kidney cancer. It has a tendency of coming back. So that's why you have to stay on top of it at all times.
That's really good advice to give people is like really stay on top of it. Because, like you mentioned, you didn't feel anything before you were diagnosed, right? Like you just, and it's a similar story for many of us. Is that something you've heard from other survivors you chatted with?
Well, I guess you'd have to say, like my doctor told me, he said, I'm very lucky because a lot of people, the kidney cancers pop up all the time, or they might pop up in a lot of different spots at one time.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate to where mine has popped up in one spot. We take care of it, goes away. It
Yeah.
might pop up again. We take care of it, goes away. So he said, I'm very fortunate. One of the things that he told me, he says, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is, keep doing it. He
Yeah.
said, because it's working.
Well, that's good. That's good that it's working and you're here with us and I appreciate you sharing your story. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure everyone listening is going to get a lot of value out of it. So I appreciate you for that.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. And Anna Maria, thanks again.
Thank you.